All right. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to Law and Licensing. Today is the 6th, and we have a few excused absences this morning. Member Carey will be joining us this afternoon for our afternoon session. And Member Hymas, are you online?
I am online. Yes.
Excellent. Excellent. And we have myself and Member Wood here. I think we'll go ahead and get started, and Member Lear, I'm sure, is on her way. Do we have any public comment this morning? Okay. Then we go directly to our first item. Has a bill gotten on yet? Would we like to go to the next item and wait for her?
Yeah, why don't we do that?
Yeah.
Come back to it.
Principal Jenkins, we'll go to the next item until we can get Ashley Beal. Okay, thank you. And as soon as she's on, we'll switch over. All right, so first up is R277603, Autism Awareness Restricted Account Distribution. This is a repeal, and I believe it's yours.
Yeah, Ben Rasmussen, Director of Law and Professional Practices. Good to be with you this morning. This is a pretty straightforward one. This is an account which the legislature has transferred from the board managing the funds to the State Tax Commission managing the funds. So we don't need to maintain a rule for something that we don't have authority over anymore. So the recommendation is just to repeal the rule.
Do you want a motion?
Please.
Repeals are pretty easy. I move that the committee repeal R277-603 on first reading and recommend the board repeal the rule on second and final reading.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Well, I don't need to restate it. Member Lear, are you wanting to vote on this one? This is the repeal.
Yes.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. I'm an aye, so that passes unanimously.
Ashley is in the Zoom room.
Oh, excellent. Okay, come on up, Principal Jenkins. This item is a waiver request. It is a renewal, and
Could start by having
AG Beal, you're online. Can you fill us in, give us some background?
I am, yes. Sorry about my technical difficulties this morning. So this waiver request is, as you stated, it's a renewal request out of Duchesne County for the Tabiona schools. It's a request that they've had for quite a few years, and they are a necessary existent small school, super small district. I know we talked about it previously with a Duchesne County different district or different waiver within their district, but they have supplied all of the information and student data that the board requests in backup for you, and it's just for a continuation of the 4-day school week, so the 180-day rule for the next 3 years.
Thank you, board members. Do you have any questions? Principal Jenkins, would you like to speak to it, or your information was very comprehensive. You do not have to, but if you would like to, you are more than welcome.
I just wanted to tell the board thank you for giving us the opportunity to have the 4-day school week. It's really improved. I feel it's improved our educational purposes because we have kids in school and not gone all the time. And so I just want to tell you thank you for allowing us to have that.
Thank you. I'd entertain a motion. It is on the agenda.
I can do it.
Okay, thanks.
I move that the committee approve Duchesne County School District Tabiona Schools request for a waiver renewal from R277-4194 and forward to the board for approval.
Okay, the motion's been made. All in favor?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. It's a unanimous decision. Thank you.
Thank you.
For coming up.
Thanks for coming. I know.
It was worth it. I told my secretary, I says, I'm not coming back if it's not.
I'll just comment, one of the things that I liked was you talking about the before, like what happened before the waiver, like the 29-day, that one of your coaches had missed 29 days and then very few absences afterwards. It was like really good to see. Sometimes we miss that.
Among our coaches it really diminished what our coaches.
Yeah, I appreciated that information.
Since
See?
COVID, absenteeism.
Yeah. Yes, we do. Thank you so much. Safe travels. All right, next up is R277-473, Utah Computer Science Grant. This is an amendment and continuation, and I believe it's yours.
Yes, thank you. So this is up for its 5-year review. This rule was originally written to basically implement what was a pilot project at the time. Since that time, the funding has become ongoing and the procedures have changed a little bit. So staff is asking the committee to essentially repeal most of the text of the rule and replace it with updated terms for how the grant is operating on an ongoing basis. We have Talia Longhurst and Christina Yamada here if you have any questions about the rule, but other than that, we'd probably just throw it open for any questions you have.
I'm gonna
Like
ask a
Chair
question.
Hymas may want to take.
Go
Mark,
ahead.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Matt. Thank you, Member
If-
Hymas.
If we look at lines, well, let's look at subsection or section 4. Can we start there? The LEA requirements. I know I brought this up in a previous meeting as well, and maybe staff can just remind me again. I'm trying to see if there's a way to reduce some of the LEA requirements on this. I know on line 208, it talks about the plan shall be consistent with section 53B-34-106. And it says, and include a comprehensive model outline for each grade level. Can we have staff again, just kind of paint a picture of what these requirements look like? If I'm, again, for each level, if I'm an elementary school principal or a middle school principal or junior high or high school, what does this look like? How much work does this take in order to get this grant?
Go ahead.
Hi, thank you. I'm Christina Yamada, CTE education specialist, and over this computer science K-12 grant. The application is actually pretty short. Most of them are only about 3 pages comprehensively, and that includes a finance piece as well. We're also willing to change the verbiage for the LEA. Since now we have a computer science dashboard, I no longer need data from each LEA for grades 7 through 12. So really, they're only reporting what they're doing in a paragraph format and a chart on demographics for case 6, as well as what they did with the funds the current year and what they plan to do with the funds in the next year.
Thank you. Follow up, Chair.
Yes.
Chair, Member Hart. So that's right. Thank you for sharing that. I know that you had shared that before. Is there some verbiage that we need to change in here to make that clear? And what would that look like?
Could we just, like in line 209, change it to, instead of each grade level, K through 6 only? Again, in 211, superintendent, a short summary. And then 213, change LEA K-12 to K-6. With that,
I don't know how the rest of the committee feels. I would be in favor of that. And I know that you just gave 3 things that I didn't write down. And
The 209, and she just added the K6.
We'll get that put up on the screen.
yes.
Just a
So,
minute.
yeah, 209, strike each grade level and change it to K6. And then 211, strike, sorry,
11 is what?
I'll take 211. So it would read superintendent, a summary of progress by June 30th for K through 6, including.
and then line 213, compared to the overall K through 6 demographics yeah, instead of K-12.
And this is more reflective on what we're actually seeking. Is that accurate?
That is correct.
Okay.
And what we currently require of the LEA.
Okay. Thank you. I'll
Go ahead.
put that motion forward if we want to debate it or if we want to discuss it first. Molly, let me know. What you,
Sure. We'll put it on the table. I have a question, and I think so does Member Lear. So, can you see the motion? Member
I
Hymas?
can, yes. You ready?
Will
for
you
me
just
to
go
throw
ahead
it
and
out
read
there?
it into record?
Yeah. So I move that the committee amend draft 1 as follows: amend lines 209 to strike each grade level and replace with K6. Amend line 211 to read a summary of progress by June 30th for K6. And amend line 213 to strike K12 and replace with K6.
Okay, that motion's been made. My question is, on what's the vehicle for, where is this report done? How do you send that out? Is it through grants management?
Not currently. It will be. I haven't had the opportunity to receive the training to put it into Utah Grants yet, but it will be. Currently, right now, I send them the report and it's just a PDF and they fill it out and return it to me. And they cannot receive their future funding until I get their report for the current year.
I just for the record, I think everything should go through Utah Grants. So if you need any help getting that training, I can maybe make some calls.
Perfect. Thank you.
Member Lear.
I had a question about any concerns you might have had of this money being used inappropriately or not being, or too much of a carryover like we've seen with other programs, or have you seen any of those problems? I'm a little, I'm not in the trenches like Member Hymas, so I get that we want to take the burdens of reporting off of the charter school heads and the traditional school heads, but I also know there's a sweet spot where it ends up being a ton of work for us if we have to do remediation or collect money that wasn't used appropriately or whatever. So I want to strike that balance. And if you're going to tell me, well, I'll just let you answer my question. Stop talking. Thank you. Chair, can one of these guys answer my question?
Absolutely. Go ahead. Sorry.
Specialists, sorry.
Yes. No, go ahead.
Talia Longhurst, Director of Career and Technical Education. I'll just start off by saying that we have a little bit of relinquishment each year from LEAs who don't fully use their funds, but most of them use it down to almost the penny. I will also tell you that, yes, there is some confusion about what is computer science and what is not computer science. This is intended to be for computer science, and we work hard on that definition, what it is and what it is not. Christina does a great job of working with the LEAs when they come to her and say, can I spend the money on this? She'll work it through. She has a committee as outlined in this rule that will help her determine what should be allowable, what should not be allowable. We have teachers, we have administrators, we have industry people who can really help narrow down where this money could be most useful. And it's really a matter of education for us. It's not a lot, but it does happen.
So, but I just am looking for an assurance from you that you'd feel like this money is being used appropriately, it's being accounted for, we're not on the brink of of worrying about this
No.
because like I said, we're always looking for that sweet spot.
Yeah.
Enough accountability, but we don't want to burden LEA. So if you feel like you're there, you're the people who deal with it.
Yeah.
If you tell me, yes, we're good and these changes would be reasonable and helpful, then I will support that.
I think a hearty yes from both of us.
Great. That's exactly what I needed. Thank you.
Thank you. And I neglected to do public comment. I prefer to do public comment right before the rule when we're in committee. And we do have one public comment on this rule. Mr. Van Tassel.
Why can I not see this rule?
Sure.
Good morning, Royce Van Tassel, Utah Association of Public Charter Schools. Appreciate the opportunity to chat with you briefly. I just have one concern with this rule. I've spoken to a number of you about it, but I think it's line 232 is rather unusual. We see supplant clauses in a variety of federal programs. It is surprising to see it here. On some level, this feels like it's punishing people who have done this on their own and saying, we're not going to let you solve that problem and then use dollars elsewhere. So my hope is, while I understand the need, the hope to expand this to as many LEAs as possible, it's just a really bizarre place here. And my hope is that you would strike line 232. So thank you.
Thank you for comment, and I apologize for not catching that earlier. All right, let's return to the motion that's on the table. I just want to make sure, in case it had relevance, that we made sure we heard our public comment.
So I just have a question. So they're required an annual, but I'm not finding anywhere where if we set the rules, do they have to reapply for this? How often do they reapply for this? Is that in here and I missed it?
Go ahead.
Thank you. In their statement of assurances that each LEA does sign, it does state that they will complete this report every year. And in order to receive the funds, they have to meet all those requirements on the statement of assurances, which is reflected in the board rule. What's that?
But how frequent? I mean, is this a long-standing grant? I guess I'm trying to get some of the more specifics of the actual application to the grant. If an LEA was not currently participating and they started, and then I understand how long does the grant last? Is it till the money runs out?
It's $4 million ongoing this year and $6 million one time this year. But we do have that $4 million ongoing piece that will remain. And so an LEA can apply at any point.
And when they're for continuing money coming back each year?
Yeah, every year.
Every year. And as long as they're doing their insurances and the money is there, they just
keep getting it every year.
Okay, that was that. Thank you for clarifying.
Yes,
that was
every year.
Okay.
What were the lines that Royce referred to?
232.
Oh.
Are there any more, Member Hymas?
No, if there's no more questions, that's fine. I do have, I do want to talk about what Royce is talking about, but I wondered if we could get through this motion at hand.
Yes, that's exactly what so are there any other questions about this, about the motion here, the amendment? All right, then it's time to vote, but let me restate that the committee amend draft 1 as follows. 1, amend lines 209 to strike each grade level and replace with K6. 2, amend line 211 to read a summary of progress by June 30th for K6. And 3, amend line 213 to strike K12 and replace with K6. That's the motion on the table. Please vote.
Aye.
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well, so that passes unanimously. Thank you. As also a practitioner, I appreciate the consideration for minimizing the only when it's unnecessary. That I do believe in accountability, but it makes both our lives easier. Okay, so Member Hymas, you would like to address the line that
Royce's.
Roy,
He's ready to.
yes,
Mr. Van Tassel.
Mr. Van Tassel brought up.
Yeah,
Can we go to that? Would you like to make that motion, or would you like to discuss it, Member Hymas?
Well, I'd like to throw something out there to get the committee.
Okay.
This when I read this before hearing Royce's comments here, my thought was if we look at 228 through 232, if we can get those on the screen, just that subsection 4. Well, maybe we can't fit them all on there, but I don't know why we have to go beyond 4A. So in my thought process, it's an LEA may not use computer science grant program funds to support non-computer science programs. I'm still struggling to understand why we need B, C, or D. Now, if we want to cut just D, that's fine. I'm just seeking some understanding here, because for me, I'd rather just say don't use computer science funds for non-computer science programs.
Okay. Would someone like to address that? Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I think certainly the last two you could reasonably construe to be part of 229. 230 with the indirect cost is a little different than just saying not support non-computer science programs. That's something that's normally included in grants, but they wanted to take this out of this one specifically because the funds are limited and they wanted to have more money to be able to provide grant for as many people or as many LEAs as possible. So I think, it's the committee's can go whichever direction they want on that, but I think B is a little different from A in what's being proposed. But I think you could certainly take C off, as that can reasonably be construed to be part of A.
So I guess then, if I could, I guess my would be then, thank you first off, Ben, for that. And yeah, I know you told me this before, guys. My head has not been right. Let's give me I'm sorry.
That doesn't give us a lot of comfort, man.
Although I remember, Hymas, you say that, but philosophically, if every grant decided they didn't want to charge indirect costs, we'd have a problem. The point of indirect costs is to cover the costs of administering the item, the grant, or whatever it is. If you never, if people, I have this problem as I work on multiple grants, and some do and some don't. And I think, what gives a particular grant the right to say this doesn't? Isn't that what we are concerned about? Quite honestly, the legislature doing to us. They have us do mandates, but they don't really consider the time and the effort and all that. That's what indirect costs cover. So philosophically, I wonder, but I do understand the argument that there seems to be a point at which the amount is too small and it would really affect that. And we just moved to take away some of the paperwork, so there's that too. But I just have a philosophical, it's been rattling around in my head about indirect costs in general. Can you speak to the indirect costs?
What I would tell you is that the direct costs of administering this program, this grant in the LEAs, is an allowable expenditure of the grant. So to take additional costs out is where it becomes an issue. Can I also just add, since I have the floor, on line 231, digital literacy, graphic arts, keyboarding, and college and career awareness courses, we added that in because those are the areas that we continue to see LEAs trying to spend this money on. And so we wanted to highlight that those were not computer science. It certainly is your decision on what you'd like to do with that. If you would be open to moving those things up into line 229, that would be helpful to us. But if you choose to take them away, that's fine too. We'll just continue to hold the line.
So having said that, I take away everything I said about indirect costs, because when they're direct costs, they just certainly don't need to be indirect. Just putting that on the record. Member Lear.
And so I'm asking you, Talia just said if we moved that to line 229, would you say something like support non-computer science programs, including blah, 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 but not limited to, but we can't say that in rules. But I don't have a problem with that, but I think I read in the materials that that was a problem you were having with LEAs, that these, and for a non-computer science person, if I were an LEA head, I might think, well, isn't digital literacy similar enough to use these funds? And again, we're looking for that sweet spot where we're reasonably asking LEAs to be responsible, but not wanting to burden. So I don't know where we are in the amendment process.
There hasn't been amendment made yet.
There has not. Then I would say an LEA may not, so on line 228, an LEA may not use computer science grant program funds to support non-computer science programs. I don't know if such as or including is the better language. Such as or including, I'm not sure. Including. And then the items in 231. And I don't know about this. I feel sort of conflicted about the supplanting issue like I do. I don't think a lot of people understand it, for one thing. Sometimes I don't, but I feel a little bit like that the same way as they do with the indirect costs. There's, and nobody's really spoken in opposition to it. And if you folks say the supplanting hasn't been a problem or you don't fear it's a problem, then I would agree with Matt, make it simpler. And you're seeming to nod your head to say it's not a problem. So my amendment is to support non-computer science programs, including digital literacy, graphic arts, keyboarding, or CCA courses, and then end it at line 231. Is that? I'm sorry. Strike. Which?
Line 231.
Yes.
Okay, Member
Yes.
Hamish, your hand is raised.
Thank you. And after hearing staff talk about the digital literacy, graphic arts, and keyboarding, CCA, how those have always been in there, I'm not opposed to leaving those in there. And with that said, I wonder if Carol could make her amendment easier by just striking line 232 and calling it a day. Either way, I'm fine with this, but
Yeah.
But
I'm fine with that too. Does it?
229, wait a minute.
You like it? That staff is saying, if you didn't hear that, Matt,
The space in between,
Exactly.
it makes it different.
the staff is saying they prefer amending 229 to say including those items as opposed to leaving them on a separate line. Does that address your concern, or?
yeah,
You don't-
that's fine with me. If staff's saying that that's always been the standard, that's not a new standard. I'm fine with that. And if this reads better and offers better clarity, then I'm good with that too.
Okay. So there's my amendment. Does it make sense to you?
Yes, it absolutely does. And Member Hymas, any further questions on that?
No, it looks good. I appreciate
Okay.
staff and the committee letting me with my gravelly ramble on.
I'll restate the motion just because there's been conversation. The motion is that the committee amend line 229 to add including digital literacy, graphic arts, keyboarding, or CCA courses after programs, and strike lines 231 to 232. I need new glasses. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that's unanimous. Thank you very much. Thank you. Oh, yeah, duh, that's an amendment. Thank you. Thank you very much. All right, so no wonder you were looking at me funny. So that takes us back to the original motion that the committee continue and approve.
Yeah,
I thought the motion was already made.
not yet.
Oh, sorry, someone make that motion.
I'll go for it.
Thank you.
Okay, I move that the committee continue and approve R277-473 Draft 1 as amended on first reading and forward to the board for continuation approval on second and final reading.
All right, the motion's been made and been stated. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Okay, there. Now it's official. Thank you. All right, next up is R277-746 Driver Education Programs for Utah Schools, an incorporated document.
Yeah, if I may. So the next two items are essentially related. There was legislation during the legislative session that basically increased the fees for some driver's ed programs. So some minor modifications are required to the driver's education manual, which needs to be incorporated by reference into the rule. So the first item would be to approve the manual changes. I've put on the screen a crosswalk which shows you the changes. There are basically 3 changes, and they're all just increases in fees that result from HB 250 from the legislative session. If you have any questions about the driver's education fee changes, I believe Audrey Uri is on the Zoom call, and she can answer those questions for you.
Okay, any questions? Go ahead, Member Wood.
I just have a really ticky-tacky change. So it's on page 1, and it's under administration and organization. This is the following is a list of driver education governing bodies, and it says Utah State legislators instead of legislature, and the legislators are not a body. So I would like to make a motion to
We can do that.
amend that to
substantively.
legislature.
We don't need a formal motion for that.
I figured, but I looked at it like they don't have any power. They think they do, but they don't have any power individually. They are a body.
Fair.
So
And you can make that change.
Yeah, we'll have
Without the motion.
Audrey will make that change, yes.
All right, then do we have a motion? I'll go ahead and make the motion that the committee approve the driver's education manual dated October 2024 and recommend the board approve the manual. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that passes unanimously. The next one is R277, same 746, but it's an amendment. Director Rasmussen?
Okay, so there are 2 changes in the rule. We've talked about that we'd be incorporating that manual by reference, and so that's the first change. The other is that we need to add the oversight category for this rule. This is a program that's monitored annually, so staff is recommending an oversight category of 4, and that's on line 14 in the rule. And the recommendation is to adopt draft 1.
Do we have any questions from the committee? Okay. Oh, go ahead.
I do have a question. I don't want to be too off topic, but I'm wondering, since Audrey's online, how many states still, do you know how many states still offer driver's ed through their public schools, driver's ed programs or courses? Or
Go ahead. Welcome.
Audrey Uri, Utah State Board Driver's
Ooh,
Education.
Audrey, can you, Audra, can you,
address?
Audra,
We
yes.
can't hear
We
you.
can't hear you. Can you raise your volume just a little?
Can you guys hear me now?
Very
Not,
low.
not really.
Barely. So it sounds like
Audra, I don't know if you want to try taking off your headset and seeing if maybe the audio or the microphone on your laptop would work better.
Can you guys hear me now?
Much better.
Like 1,000 times better. That doesn't seem to work either.
Much better. Can you hear us?
No, she can't.
You can't hear us now.
You know what? It's not, it was more,
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, but can you hear us?
No.
Yeah. So there you go. I think you'll
Okay,
just,
can you-
yeah, we,
Okay, can you guys hear
We
me
can
now?
hear you now.
that is
Okay,
perfect. Can
Just
you hear
plugged
us?
it, just unplugged it and plugged it back in. Yes, I can. Sorry about that. Audrey Yuri, driver's education specialist. I actually serve as the chair for the national committee for all the driver's ed states for everybody across the country. And I'm their leader of such. So I am aware of who still has it in the school system. And it's about 75% of the country still has it within the school system.
good. That's really helpful. I just hear rumors periodically about why do we have driver's ed in our public schools? We've got so many things to do, and it's good to know that most states. I think it's personally having a bunch of grandchildren who are of almost driving age. I am thrilled that there are ways that they can get this training. So thank you for that answer.
Yes, if I might add, the biggest reason is because of equity, because it just provides the opportunity for every student to have that ability to take driver's education versus privatizing it.
Okay, is there someone willing to make that motion?
Somebody puts it up there. Are you ready? I move that the committee approves R277-746, draft 1, on first reading and forward to the board for approval on second and final reading.
Okay, let's vote.
Aye.
Aye.
And I'm an aye, so that passes unanimously. Thank you, Audra.
You're welcome.
All right, let's move to R277323, Section 1, Public Educator Evaluation. This is an amendment. And Director Rasmussen.
Yeah, so this one is a simple one. The board passed this rule in I think about March or April. When the rule was originally drafted, we overlooked adding an oversight category, which needs to be added. So we're simply asking the committee to approve an oversight category. The rule already requires that the board monitor 10% of LEAs annually. So that would put it in a category 3. And so that's the recommendation that be added.
Thank you. Do we have any questions? Seeing no questions, somebody make a motion?
Sorry.
Go ahead, Lee.
I move that the committee approve R277-323 draft 1 on first reading and forward to the board for approval on second and final reading.
Excellent. The motion's been made.
I do have a question on that.
Oh, go for it.
Because the notice is section 1, the motion was different. If that motion would open up the whole rule, is your intent to open up the whole rule, or would you like me to remake that motion with section 1?
If you could make it with just section 1, that would be great.
Okay, because that was not in our memo at recommended action. So that the committee approve R277-323 section 1, draft 1 on first reading and forward to the board for approval on second and final reading.
Thank you. With that motion, please vote.
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. That passes unanimously. All right, now we are to R277301, Educator Licensing and Amendment. And I believe that
I'll take it.
you'll take it. Okay.
It's
Go ahead.
actually your amendment, but
It
I'll
is.
take it.
It is.
This is pretty simple, even though Malia seems to be out of the room. What happened in this case is recently the board amended 301 to change the associate license renewals to make it so that you could not renew an associate license, but then LEA could request an extension of an associate license under particular circumstances. This became an issue for a few associate licensees who worked for private schools, where their private schools couldn't request an extension. And so there was a board member request led by Board Member Hart and a couple of other board members to add language, as you see on line 98 and 99, that would allow an accredited private school to make a request for an extension in addition to an LEA.
Go ahead.
Thank you for that. And it was late last night, and a lot of, exhaustion, but I could not figure out what this was trying to do, and I did not find that one little change. So I appreciate that. And I wish Malia were here, because I'd like to ask if that's any kind of the board doesn't typically work with private schools. On the other
There
hand,
she is.
Malia, that was like ESPN. Good job.
I'm trying to get out of here, Malia.
I know. I apologize. Oh my goodness, you guys. All I did was get a snack. Yes.
Anyway, but back to my question. On lines 98, where the change is, I was just about to say, I know that the board doesn't typically regulate private schools. And we, as at least traditionally, have tried to stay away from, we don't need anything more on our plates than the public schools. But I know that the LEAs or that private schools are concerned sometimes with the accreditation of their teachers, or the credentialing of their teachers. Sorry, I'm getting words bungled. So I'm just wondering if this poses a minimal burden for your office, if it is some way benefits the traditional public school system, if you have any opinion about the benefit of this change.
Yes, Malia Height, Executive Coordinator of Educator Licensing. The scope of how much work this is we ran the data and found that there were in total 8 educators who would fit in a scenario where they would want to extend an associate license and were employed at an accredited private school in Utah. And so the lift is minimal, almost non-existent, really. And it provides, I think, support for our private schools who are trying to maintain high standards of having licensed educators as their teachers. And we do in Utah have teachers who come out of the private school system and into a public district or charter.
Okay, that helps me. I have one quick follow-up. Is there any concern of not having or accredited Utah private school? Is that a big deal that suddenly some, like I always think of WGU, who now, we manage the whole system of WGU all across the country. Is there any chance of that being a problem, that it be non-Utah private schools asking for this extension?
I think that there is a significant amount of concern, and we as staff would support adding Utah into that language to limit the scope of who we're managing their associate license extensions.
Then I will make amendment. Is that okay? Is that?
We have it actually prepared.
Oh, well,
If
again, ESPN.
It's on the board there.
All right. I move that the committee amend draft 1, R277-301, draft 1, to add Utah-based. Do you say Utah-based as opposed to Utah?
Yeah.
Is that better? Okay. Utah-based before accredited private school on line 98.
Is there any comment about the proposed amendment? Member Hymas?
Let me just ask.
Sure.
I'm sure you just said it, Malia, Utah-based. I mean, there are other private schools that are not Utah-based that function here in Utah. Our educators work here in Utah. Are we punishing them for working for a school that's not Utah-based? Are we punishing our Utah educator for not working in a Utah-based school?
Honestly, we hadn't even thought about that. When the reason is I don't want, we get a lot of educators who are out-of-state educators who want a Utah license because they qualify for one here, but have never been in Utah in their life and have no intention of being in Utah in their life, or being enrolled in a Utah-based program. So we're trying to limit that scope because that is a significant lift.
And if I can add, I think if a private school has a location in Utah, I think you can reasonably construe that language to mean that they're Utah-based, even if their headquarters are in another state.
I agree.
Does Grand Canyon U have an office here?
They do not.
Good.
Yeah. Hold on. Go ahead, Deputy Stallings. Deputy Stallings also had a response.
Mostly, I just wanted to let you know that about 6 to 8 years ago, the Utah State Legislature provided funding to make it so that we have no licensing fees anymore. And it used to be that there was a charge, for licensing. And when that happened, we had a lot of out-of-state people who wanted to just get a license in Utah to use it, not necessarily to work in Utah. So that's another factor to consider, that in some ways, if there aren't some restrictions, you could have people coming just to get a Utah license so that they can work in many other places, but never have the intention of working in Utah. Because I don't think that's common that there are no licensing fees. Not all states have that. Is that correct?
There are only 2 states that I'm aware of, and I talked to all of them.
It was such a weighty fee before too.
Okay, Member Hymas.
Yeah, but you're saying it's a heavy lift when that happens, because here's the thing, as a practitioner, when I'm getting people with applications and they're not even applying here because they can't work here, I'd love to see a system where I can hire a good teacher even if they're not from Utah. And I'm wondering, is this a barrier to that? And maybe I'm in a different area here. I'm just wondering barriers into finding and developing good educators.
Yeah, so, Chair, if I may. So this amendment is limited to people who have an expired or expiring associate license, which means they already have a temporary license that has now run the 3-year course, and they want to renew that and have not completed an educator preparation program. We have extremely liberal rules around educators coming from other states. We're part of the Interstate Teacher Mobility Compact, which allows any teacher within a compact state to be granted a license in Utah almost immediately. And we have, the board has aligned all of our out-of-state licensing procedures to align to that same practice. So if somebody has a license that is a professional level license in another state, they immediately get a Utah license as long as they pass a background check. And so there's no barriers that way. This is really talking about a small percentage of people. We've got about 2,800 nationwide of these kinds of educators, but we have several hundred who are living, residing, and not working at a Utah school or providing any kind of school in Utah to Utah students who, that's why we want to limit the scope.
First off, thank you, 1, for that clarity, and 2, for, again, reminding me what the motion really is pinpointing here. I think I got off, that's why I think I got off target here. into a broader scope. So I appreciate that. And I don't have any other questions. Thank you.
Thanks. Member Lear?
I'm good.
No, your light was just on. So the motion before the amendment before the committee is that the committee amend draft 1 to add Utah-based before accredited private school on line 98. Seeing no other lights, please vote. Aye. Excellent. That passed unanimously. Now we go to the underlying motion.
Can I just ask some questions?
Sure.
Just for
Absolutely.
educational purposes. So is your division over all licensing in Utah, whether it's private or public school? If a teacher wants a professional license, they will come through USBE. Is that accurate?
Yes. So
Okay.
in the state of Utah, the only place to get an educator license is through the USBE and through my team.
And just to follow up, and so private schools do not require licenses to some or do it to teach.
Okay, so there's no law that requires a private school teacher to have an educator license. There are employers who require it as part of their employment. And of course, if a private school is also an SOEP provider, then teachers who are teaching within SOEP are required to have an educator license. But we have a provider-specific license, which is synonymous to our LEA-specific license for those private schools.
Thank you for giving me that background.
Seeing no other questions, please vote. We did.
That was amendment.
Oh, yeah. You know what? I said it, but then there was a question, and so it went poof. Would someone like to make that motion? Sure. Thank you.
I move that the committee approve R277-301 draft 1 as amended on first reading forward to the board for approval on second and final reading.
All right, the motion's been made, and let's go ahead and vote.
Aye.
Aye. That passes unanimously. Now we're done. That leads us to USBE strategic plan and goals. And if you you can't escape it, Member Lear, it will follow you. We have an hour and a half. So what is going up on the screen is our beloved committee chair put together, compiled some of the, or all of the suggestions or some, okay. And has some, I'm stalling here while we, no.
Molly, did I
What?
miss? I thought I gathered all the goals. There were goals. If I could speak to this while we're
Sure.
from what I understand, there were goals sent and strategies sent, and I just compiled all the goals. I didn't keep the strategies on there. So there was a lot more information. And then what I did on this document here, just for the public's use or understanding and the committee, is I just took all these goals and I even put the prompt in on this document. And I can't remember what the prompt is exactly, but I put in AI and I said, hey, take these goals, put them together, and make a goal for the Utah State Board of Education's Law and Licensing Committee. And then it came out, it popped out this 2 or 3 sentence goal. And then I asked it to revise it and make it shorter. And then there's the short version there. So these long version and short version. This is AI. This is not Matt Hymas doing anything. I didn't change anything. I would, if we were to look at these short and long versions of what AI spit out, I think I would change some of the verbiage. I wouldn't leave it exactly, but that's essentially what's happened here. I want to give appreciation to those committee members who have sent goals and who have been thinking about this, and they probably have others as well. And then I also want to thank Angie for some thoughts on a goal, and Malia for thoughts as well. Quite fittingly, our law and licensing staff each provided some goals, or a goal, and so we put those in there as well. So that's where this came from.
All right, so what's on the screen in here right now is the short version, the long version, and the ideas. So we can attack this in a number of ways. Perhaps maybe we could start with things that resonate, pieces, parts of any of them, any of the items that, for instance, oh, it just went away.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Put it on this. Having Matt there right over my shoulder, but place to read what's on the screen. That's far away, that's far away.
Oh. Okay. Go ahead, member, Chair Hymas.
Yeah, as we dive into this, I do want to kind of agree with what Joe and Carol said yesterday. And I know their words weren't the same, but they were kind of talking about what is the point of this? Why are we doing this? We're going to have a new committee. How does this come out? Is it specific to certain committees, or is it board wide? And anyway, just some concerns that were shared by a couple of board members. And for this law and licensing one, I would like to, as I think about this, and I get that I'm just one committee member, but I would like to consider staying general enough that it can live through various people on a law and licensing committee, that it's just something that when somebody looks at it says, oh, this is essentially what the law and licensing does, right? These are their goals because this is what they do. And then something that's not necessarily specific in other areas, because we do get a lot of things that go to finance or standards and assessment, right? We don't always do rules, right? So we wouldn't necessarily mention rule. We could talk about policy because that's a heavy lift that we do, but we wouldn't specifically talk about rules. And I know I've talked to Member Wood about data privacy, but data privacy is also in these other ones as well. So I'm not saying that we reject those things or ignore them, but to put it in a more general area, and then of course under the umbrella of academic excellence, of what's the purpose of law and licensing, how is it going to help students. Now our role is obviously, as licensing, is through educators and policy to make sure that we're following law and creating avenues for educators and students and families to achieve that education. So just some of my initial thoughts as we jump in here.
So I share those concerns, or those, I have those same thoughts or thought patterns. If the law and licensing goal is something that is not unique to law and licensing, then I'm not sure that it belongs. Like, so we all are ensuring robust data security and privacy. I think that may be what I'm somewhat trying to confirm, that I'm understanding your line of thought as well. And that's kind of what I heard yesterday. For me, in law and licensing, we work to ensure that there is clarity in policies that are derived from law. We also seem to we want flexibility, so we don't want to overprescribe so that LEAs can follow the law. Our policies are there so that LEAs can follow the laws set by legislature through our policies. So I'm interested in clarity. I'm interested in flexibility. And I'm less interested in like what's after the and. Because what's after the and goes to the whole board. It's not specific to law and licensing. But I do also we could say something like improve student outcomes, or we could say support educational excellence by prioritizing educator and student leader development. That's the licensing part. So there's like two different things there. It's just another way. It's just improving educational excellence by prioritizing educator and school leader development. That's somewhat broad, and it says what we're trying to do. As you know, I've struggled with making this goal because I feel like law and licensing is a thread that goes through everything. It's hard to section it out. It's also incidentally what I think is maybe a downfall in our curriculum, that we've sectioned out things to subject areas and you lose the holistic nature. So I don't know. When I think about what we do, we want policies to be clear, and we need policies that are flexible. So those are just, I don't know, just some thoughts I had. Go ahead.
So I wanted to discuss the data where I came with that, because AI kind of took out the important parts actually. So AI is not always your win. So in what I had recommended was implementing robust data governance policies. And in the reason of that was we get in our committee, most of the data requests come to us. And so as I sat with our data person, I said, how often do we ask them, how will this impact our students? How will this improve our academic achievement excellence? And she said, in the 2 years she's worked here, no one has asked that question. So we have these requests that come to us, but we don't in any way look at, well, how is this going to benefit the system as a whole? And so that's where what I wanted was some sub goals under there that said, if you're going to ask for our data, we need to stop just giving it away and look at, okay, come back to us with a report. If we're talking about our English language learners, well, then what's working, what isn't, and how are we going to change that? And so I don't want a specific goal to that, but I want us to look at the big picture about how we use data in our agency to really move academic excellence forward.
And that is, you are absolutely right, and that's a wonderful point. I'd love to use this example when teaching students about the limitations of AI, actually. I mean, you take out that word and it means something completely different. None of this is certain, but Deputy Stallings is trying to do her best at capturing the conversation. What other pieces do we need to include? Or what pieces don't resonate with you?
I guess I'll say one more thing. Another
Yeah,
thing that
please.
AI took out was this simultaneously streamlining administrative processes. I think that
Ooh.
is where you're talking about the clarity and flexibility.
That is.
And so, I mean, we're coming up with the same thing, but just recognizing that in that big overarching one, there were some very specific things about how are we eliminating reporting? Just like today, we talked about in the computer tech grant, how are we eliminating and simplifying reports? So that broad language, but really gets to the work that we do in supporting our LEAs and our teachers and our students.
Of course, I want parallel structure in all things. And so we're talking about educational excellence, of course, that's our primary goal. And so it's law and licensing does this by prioritizing educator and school leadership development. Now we need a something in front of streamlining, which is an ing word.
We could say
Streamlining, or
policy development, including
streamlining policy.
just policy.
But you put,
statewide policies. I don't know.
but then you're providing clarity and flexibility in the board's policy.
I mean, in Leanne's goal, she put streamlining administrative processes. Does that fit in there? You can look at, or is that kind of covered with your leadership development?
No, I guess streamlining, I guess we need to be specific about what we're streamlining.
Because I don't believe we're trying to streamline our policies. I think we're trying to add.
You're right.
We're trying to look at the end game. How can they be doing the work they need to with less, working smarter, not
Yes.
harder?
Yes. So, no, I wouldn't. It does does the word administrative cover everything what's the word that encompasses, is it all administrative processes? Are they all, can you call everything that we do for schools an administrative process? Or is there a different word? Yeah.
Do we do anything? If there might be side conversations going on. I can't hear, so I'm just going to interrupt. I apologize.
Please do. I would rather, I think we're not going to get anywhere unless this is a natural conversation. Please just jump in there.
When we talk about streamlining administrative processes, do we do anything that directly involves students? Everything that we do, if we look at what we do, does it ever go straight to students, or is it always affecting administrative responsibilities? That's where our power and authority come in for academic excellence, right? We look at administrative processes. I'm wondering if that is exactly the right term.
Okay. there's something about it that seems,
It sounds a little lightweight.
is that what, yeah.
That to me, because we don't just, I mean, we do establish some procedures. And the other question that I'm having a little trouble with is do these affect students? Yes, maybe it's, a couple of degrees of separation, but they do affect students because licensed teachers are important for students. They improve the learning for students.
Yeah,
That's
and
just one example.
I want to clarify, Carol, everything we do affects the students. I'm saying, is there any part of that we skip administration or skip administrative processes that would go straight?
Go straight to students.
So if we took,
Go
So
ahead.
if
Well,
we
I'm saying,
took
for
out-
example, the standards and assessment, or the standards and assessments, when they look at standards, students are directly affected by that, like on a one-to-one.
No, and I disagree, Matt, because the standards are only used by LEAs to find curriculum that then is consistent, that the curricula are consistent with the standards. So they don't set the Standards and Assessment Committee doesn't set the curriculum or find the textbook for Olympus High School. Or APA, or, at any school, that it's a broader directive. And I think that's the role of the state board, is to set the broader directives and allow the LEAs to find the more specific elements that then work for the LEA. Am I crazy, or you're just thinking with your brain fog?
I'm just listening to you. I see it as a little bit different, and I don't want to spend a lot of time again, when you set a standard and you say, you're going to do this in reading or writing, and then the LEA gets a curriculum to follow that, there's a direct impact. I'm wondering what our direct impact, if any, is that close to students, or kind of like you mentioned previously, we're sometimes 3 or 4 times removed.
We are, and I just think we're removed in a different way than standards and assessment. I guess I'm particularly prickly about this, but I do agree, Matt, I don't want to belabor, but I'm a little prickly about it because one of my longstanding concerns has been the legislature often wants to pass laws that then directly tell students and parents or even school teachers what they're supposed to do. And I don't see that as the board's role. I don't see that as the legislature's role. I see both of those: general control and supervision, and establish and maintain. And neither of those are direct roles to students.
I agree with that. I did think of an example, as you said, that has come through our committee that would go directly to students, and that is the right of conscience. The law.
Right.
So
yes, that gives
tough.
Students or parents the right of conscience.
So I think the student part is that first part, improving educational excellence. That's the part that is related to students. And the degrees of separation are in the other, the rest of the sentence. We do that by prioritizing educator and school leader development. That covers the licensing and such. And then enhancing system support and, LEAs or systems by simplifying, clarifying, and providing flexibility in policy development, including
The implementation is
We're simplifying their implementation.
LEA implementation.
Yeah, I think that's true.
I mean, that's,
I guess.
Or just implementation would be LEA and staff implementation.
Enhancing system
Would make
support.
sense.
It's not just support though, enhancing system effectiveness.
oh, yes, I
But
like
maybe
that.
that's not the right word either. I don't know.
No, I think that is.
But
It's,
it's
we are trying to
Make
support
and
the LEAs being efficient and effective.
effectiveness, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah,
the perfect
that's-
word, but
I think it's
Um,
better. I think
but-
it's better.
because it's not just it's support. And
Right.
and this is maybe too tedious to put into a goal, but here's my challenge, and it came up this morning, and I keep bumping into it. And again, if you feel like it's not a big problem, then I'll let it go. But I worry, and this is where Matt and I sometimes butt heads is I want things to be simple and understandable for LEAs. On the other hand, when the legislature comes to us and says and I'm making this up, we gave you $18 million for the science of reading, show me the results, show us the results. And I don't begrudge, they didn't really give us, they took taxpayer money and siphoned it through them and then through us. They took our money as taxpayers. I'll belabor that part. Okay. But it is appropriate that the body that distributes the money asks for accountability.
And wouldn't that be in our standards and assessment? Because we don't actually do that really too much in law and licensing.
Well, we have lots of rules that are about monitoring.
Fair.
That include language about monitoring programs. And our audit
Fair.
committee, and this is, I'm kind of now going away, but the auditing that's infused through all the committees is certainly about how did you use that money, LEA? And I think maybe more than some board members, I think that is until our trust levels are improved, which may not be in my lifetime, but we have to have a monitoring process in place, which is why I'm a fan of this oversight.
Okay,
So-
so then it would be simplifying, clarifying, monitoring, and providing flexibility. So you would be adding
And I think
monitoring.
And I think the thing that's not like the others is providing flexibility.
Yeah, so the point there was just that when we create a policy, we try not to be a super board. We try not to commit the same sins that we sometimes ascribe to legislation. It's that we try to honor the LEA's local context and their decision making. Somehow including that idea, because we do try hard to do that. And I don't know, I'm not sure flexibility is the right word. It certainly isn't parallel structure, and I would love for it to think of a one word. But I do think that adding monitoring is an important part.
Because otherwise,
Yep.
when we're asked by the source of the funds, how are they used,
Yep.
then we actually cause more burden for LEAs to say, now we need to know how you use this stuff. I know we never told you to keep the documentation, but now we need it. So
Yeah.
I think we need to own our responsibility
Yep.
to monitor
Up.
a little more sort of, I think it's responsible to own that.
Okay. So, oh, Matt, Member Hymas.
Can I just jump in here? I'm reading this. We're talking about enhancing system effectiveness by, if I read this, it's simplifying. If we take each one of these at a time, simplifying policy development and implementation, clarifying policy development and implementation, monitoring policy development and implementation, and providing flexibility in policy development and implementation, right? We're saying that we're doing these, this is how we're enhancing system effectiveness by doing these 1, 2, 3, 4 things. Again, as I look at what the Law and Licensing Committee does, our committee does not monitor. And I hear what you're saying, because I like it. And this kind of goes back to what we discussed a little bit. What is it that we can do when we look at a general sense of what the committee does? Do we monitor? Now, can we simplify policy development and implementation? Yes, the committee can do that. Can we clarify it? Yes, we can. We actually took some steps to do that today. Can we monitor it? No, we do not. The committee does not. The staff does that monitoring. And then can we provide flexibility? I believe that we can as well. And we did that again today by removing some light items. So I'd like more discussion on this monitoring to see how it actually fits and if it actually fits.
So when I think of the monitoring, what I was thinking about is the fact that we have the framework and that in our committee, we put into the rules the level of monitoring. So we're creating the monitoring a system or framework or skeleton. You're absolutely correct. That's not the way it's written is not accurate. But how do we capture that we ensure that
maybe we provide for monitor and not, I'm not thinking parallel language right now, but.
Okay, what about providing flexibility and
even,
monitoring?
let me just kind of explain that a little
Sure.
bit in response to, because I think Matt's absolutely right. And I think that you said that really well, Matt. But through rules, and this is kind of where Molly was going too, through rules, we do look to have the rules have appropriate monitoring provisions in them. So I think that to the consistent with our role as the state board, I think we do facilitate monitoring by making sure appropriate monitoring, not excessive, reasonably flexible, but appropriate monitoring practices are in our rules. And if we looked at all of our rules and got rid of all of that, all of those requirements, then I think a lot of that monitoring would go away. And maybe there's a better word than monitoring. But I think it is the role of this committee, maybe because law is in our title, that we do monitor. We don't as committee members, but we do make it so that the staff can monitor LEAs for compliance with the rules that are passed, the laws. To some extent, sometimes the legislature has, in the last few years, passed off some of those unpleasant monitoring responsibilities to the board.
Can we look at how messy it would be if we simplify and clarify policy development, but we provide for monitoring and flexibility and implementation?
Yeah, I asked the writer. I think that is a better clarification. Did you guys hear what
Did you hear
Leanne
what I
suggested?
said?
She maybe had a good idea.
So I don't know if it's too messy. You might have to just see it, but
make
we
2 sentences.
simplify and clarify in policy development, but we provide for flexibility and monitoring in implementation.
Yes.
I do want to bring up, as well, not to just bring it up as well, that monitoring is something that is done in all committees.
Well, I wanted to say this yesterday. I think we need to look at every single one of these goals across the board. If we're not doing them as a whole body, lasting, then even they shouldn't even be really in our individual committees because we all get thrown stuff that maybe should have been in another committee, but that committee was busy. And so we're doing it in our committee. I think we can't silo off the work of these goals. I hope that when we finalize this whole look, we can look at the other committee goals and say, yeah, I know this is the primary work of this goal of this committee, but we need to be doing that transparency, effectiveness, the goals that were coming from finance. We better be doing transparency and effectiveness in this section too. So I hope that these goals are across the board
Right.
worthwhile.
And if we're encouraging schools and teachers, if we're finding that the effective way to teach and do their work is by what's it called? Pollinating, I want to say, but it's not. It's by math, kind of what we see a lot in the art. You know, the fact that I'm looking at a picture right now that is a painting that is made by drawing Y's only. So the art teacher is also teaching letters through the art. If we're saying that's the best way to work with bodies and teach people, then I think that, Matt, it should be, we should be doing the same as a board. We should be looking for ways that standards and assessment is working with law and licensing, so that we're not in silos where, yeah, that works for finance, but it's sure terrible for USBE finance, but it's sure terrible for LEAs. I think we need to look to be more, what is that word you use in education all the time about
Cross-curricular.
Yeah, cross-curricular or cross-collaboration or one of those words, because I think that, I've really come to believe that's a better way to run a railroad. Whether it's a public school or a state board, or we can't just be saying, I'm about school finance and this is how we do things.
So on some levels, we just need to get something somewhat close. Because I think when there's going to be a whole nother conversation exactly like what you just said, when all of the committees bring their stuff together. When we put all of them together, we're going to see that there's so much overlap, and there should be, for the reasons you just said. I think that we can put forward in what we're doing right now. I think we put forward things that are important to us, and then we put it before the board, because by itself, it's not as impactful as all of them together. I think that by separating it out, you lose the interplay, is what you're kind of talking about. And what's that? That's what I'm saying. So I think that we are not going to be able to come to a final, something we're really feeling good about until we're assured and we see everybody's together. So my point is, I don't think we're going to leave here feeling totally satisfied, because all of us inherently understand that these have to be together. So let's just state things that we feel rather strongly about and then put something forward, because it's going to feel incomplete until we do this in the context of all of the other committees, all of them, all two of them. But we just have to get close, is what I'm proposing. We're not going to feel like it's complete, because it won't be complete without the other two. And so the prioritizing, and remember that, well, and the reason we went to establishing in the first place is the idea that what we do is we establish the policy. The whole board in everything we do keeps an eye on student safety, including data security. So what we do is we establish the policies for data governance. Yeah.
While
What about
Well, I know I like while establishing is
while establishing? Okay. It indicates that the data governance policies are always in mind when you say while.
They're integral to
Yeah.
to doing all those other things. that
Sure.
are. That's like you.
I think we're
If we say it's for government work, that's pretty good.
without seeing the other two committees, I think we're fairly close. It's called law and licensing. We took care of licensing. That was easier. The problem is law is just so, it's like technology. It's not, you can't separate out school technology from every subject. It's something that flows through. It's a thread. And law is too. So it's somewhat of a almost impossible task, but I do think that incorporates the majority of our activities. Now, grammatically, I'm sure there are, E.B. White is just turning in his grave, and Strunk probably too.
Another just thought, maybe I'm now into the overthink kind of process, but prioritizing educator and school leadership development, that's good. Where I'm struggling is enhancing system effectiveness by, it feels like it needs to say, there needs to be a what that follows simplifying, clarifying, maybe providing flexibility in mind. It's just too far away. Yes, maybe that's it. But and it also, you could, data governance, you could also read that data governance is that policies only applies to data governance. Through, let's see, enhancing system effectiveness through policy. Is policy too narrow? Do we need to say through applicable laws, which would include all of the?
Well, policy is what
You're thinking of policy in a more
we set policy. We don't set law. I mean, it has the force of law.
Yeah,
but
the rules have the force of law.
Yeah.
But you're thinking policy as a policy, a broad term, not the. Through policy by simplifying, clarifying, providing flexibility and monitoring. I think that's even a little better. That feels a little better to me.
Remember, Chair Hymas, you still with us?
Yeah, I'm still with you. I'm listening. Sometimes I'm getting some conversation without a mic, so it's a little bit blank. But
sorry.
We will stop. We will stop with that.
Sorry.
I knew it was Carol. I've been working with Carol long enough.
Everything's, and by the way.
What do you have any thoughts right now? Anything that I feel pretty good about this.
It's better than the nothing we had before.
Yeah, we went from 0 to this, so, but what, you haven't spoke up in a minute. What are your thoughts, Chair Hymas?
So this is separated into two parts, right? It looks like we're doing the licensing is the first part before this semicolon, improving educational excellence by prioritizing educator and school leadership development. That looks like our licensing portion. Am I correct on that? And then the law portion is and enhancing system effectiveness through policy by simplifying, clarifying, and providing for flexibility, monitoring while establishing robust data governance. I'm not sure if I read that second half, I'm trying to see if it really goes anywhere, and maybe I'm just misreading it. Enhancing system effectiveness through policy. So we're enhancing system effectiveness through policy, and here's how we do it. Here's how we enhance system effectiveness by simplifying, clarifying, and providing for flexibility and monitoring. That's how we're saying we enhance the system effectiveness. Is that accurate?
True. Well,
That is correct.
maybe I think you make a good point, Matt. System effectiveness through policy all follows logically, but we don't only do that by simplifying, clarifying, and providing for flexibility. Oh, I like that through policy there. Okay.
And through policy might have to stay. Sorry, I don't know if somebody was speaking without a mic or just thinking, but
I was in my mic. That was me.
that wasn't
me. I already suspended. Such as they were. Okay, so what is your point, Matt?
Well, I'm wondering if through policy has to stay there because it really is our avenue of doing these things.
Yeah, that's why I liked it there. And it could, but then also by simplifying. I'm not even sure I like that. Yeah, that's right.
Does that make sense?
Yes, that was what I was wrestling with before. It didn't, there wasn't.
Can we move the through policy to the end? I like through better than in.
So the issue linguistically is that simplifying, clarifying, and providing for flexibility and monitoring doesn't modify something. What are we simplifying?
Yeah, that's what I was asking.
Like so the policy is what you're trying to simplify, clarify, etc. But the through policy is your lever, but you're also going to be doing these things. So it might be that the by is the wrong word.
I'm guessing
we
that's
kind of
what-
lost something
Thank
when
you.
we
That was
took out
Maya.
when we took out the policy development. We kind of lost what we were simplifying and clarifying. We were simplifying and clarifying policy development, and we took that out.
Well, not just development, but also the policies themselves.
Yeah.
Because we want to provide, I'm thinking about what we did today. We provided a waiver that provides flexibility. We clarified in a number of changes to rules. We simplified by taking out some pieces of a rule that were unnecessary. So I'm just trying to actually relate this to what we do. I worry that simplifying and clarifying are not enough, and even providing flexibility and monitoring are. We've got to say we make through rules. We make policy. We establish policies, and it somehow doesn't say that to me.
Try this one.
Okay. I may see that.
Used to be just as.
After I made you, now I'm used to trying to squint at that.
It does say policy development. Is that enough?
Let's see, policy, oh, by simply clarifying policy. My point was, Matt, my point was that we don't only simplify and clarify the development. Yes, we simplify policy when necessary, clarify policy when necessary, but we also, oh, I don't know. But we also actually write the we actually create the policy. And if the legislature leaves in the laws it passes, it used to actually give us more authority. The board shall write rules. Now it doesn't do that as much, but it still leaves holes in the law that we have to fill. And so I don't know that simplifying says that, or clarifying says that, or providing flexibility or monitoring. So I'm
Could
looking.
we enhance system effectiveness by creating, simplifying, and clarifying policy and providing for flexibility and monitoring and implementation while establishing robust data governance?
And you added creating. Yes, that's.
So we get rid of development and add creating before simplifying. So we have the beginning,
Yes.
the middle, and clarifying is what we do when law comes. Sometimes we have to be the clarifying step of how are we actually going to implement it.
Yes.
And then providing for flexibility and monitoring. I think that's when the LEAs we're allowing that flexibility for when they actually implement the policy. We've taken all the steps through. So creating before simplifying. Yep. And
By
and there
creating.
may be a better word, but by creating, simplifying
We've used developing so many times that, I mean, that's another
and
word.
clarifying policy.
And providing flexibility and monitoring in implementation. Yes. Yeah, that feels a lot more comprehensive to me, or a lot more complete.
I'm wondering now if the robust data governance needs to be with this one over here, though.
Yeah.
Well, because it's really about
Yes.
policy while establishing robust data governance and providing for flexibility in monitoring and implementation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I kept
Yeah.
being bothered by that. Yeah. I think that does. And Leanne, you need to turn on your.
All right, let's, I need to read this out loud if you'll indulge me, because my brain now is, yeah, I will. So, improving educational excellence by prioritizing educator and school leadership development, enhancing system effectiveness by creating, simplifying, and clarifying policy while establishing robust data governance and providing for flexibility in monitoring and implementation. Member Hymas, what are your thoughts?
Well, my first thought is that I'm a math teacher and not an English teacher. We keep moving things around here. And I mean, I like this. I think this is a good base. I think we've been working from this base, and I think we're in the tweaking stage is what I'm saying. I like the direction of this.
Okay.
I don't know. Again, I turn to the wordsmiths in the room to make it flow better. I don't know how that semicolon seems like an abrupt gap in the flow of the goal, even when you read it, right? Improving educational excellence by prioritizing educator and school leadership development, enhancing systems of effectiveness by creating, like, should it be and enhancing systems, or we could, what goes before there, but. And then the other thought that I had was, and this is a small one, and I'm not going to die on this hill, but improving educational excellence by, we've been using the term academic excellence, and I don't know if that's, again, a conversation we really want to have, or if educational is what we mean.
I do like, but I do like, because this is how we were tying it to students. I think we should use the language that we use in the, oh, did they?
Standards uses educational excellence in theirs, so if we want some continuity through
Okay.
the three, just.
Then I'll bring it up at board
Yeah,
meeting, and
we'll see where it
Yeah,
falls, but.
yeah, okay, let's leave that for now, and then we'll clean that up when we see the other two. But I love how we've done it this way. Like it provides order to it organizes the thoughts and chunks it in a way that my brain can comprehend. That's just my thought.
And if I might add, it aligns with the Office of Administrative Rules rule writing style. So you're very on trend there. You're in line, cohesive, whatever.
So Carol made a good point about the establishing versus maintaining. I hope we establish the data policies that I want to recommend, but once they're established, we really need to just maintain them so that, when those researchers come, we go, okay, here's our policy. Yes, you can have the data. Nope, sorry, this isn't good for kids.
And to that point, Board Member Wood, really the big heavy lift on establishing a lot of our student data privacy laws, policies, structures took place, we've kind of stabilized in that space, to your point, in the maintenance phase, and always improving, right? But not as much establishing.
All right, are we good with this? We are good with this. Excellent. Do we need to vote on this?
Probably.
Okay. So I'll make the motion just because for ease. Oh, no. Lee, please, Member Wood, will you please make the motion?
I really like it. And that's not what I can say about some of the other. So I move that the committee approve the following committee goal language and forward to the board. Improving educational excellence by 1, prioritizing educator and school leadership development. 2, enhancing system effectiveness by creating, simplifying, and clarifying policy while maintaining robust data governance. And 3, providing for flexibility and monitoring and implementation.
Okay, well, there's that. And we did that in an hour. Board members, do you, any further comment before we vote? Seeing none, please vote.
Aye.
Aye. That is unanimous, and that is our last item. So we are adjourned until our 1 o'clock meeting. Wait, what time is it? Is it really 12:30?
12:30 to 1 is too bad.
Hold on, we got to make sure we have our right time.
12:30 to 1 is lunch.
Yep.
USDB's at 1.
Okay, USDB at 1 o'clock. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.